On the night of October 21st, 1972, the silence of a remote mountain gorge in Afghanistan was shattered by a sudden, brutal ambush. Bleeding from a bullet wound directly through his chest, a man named 𝐘𝐞𝐚𝐫𝐬 collapsed to the ground. Knowing his attackers were still hunting in the dark, he forced himself to lie perfectly motionless, feigning death. Just a few feet away lay the body of his younger brother, John. For 4 agonizing hours, Dave remained frozen in the pitch black. He listened as caravans passed blindly in the night, too terrified to move or call out, waiting as his life drained into the dirt, until Afghan authorities finally discovered the scene. The victims of this ambush were unarmed Midwesterners, ordinary men from Waseca, Minnesota, caught in a death trap half a world away from home. 2 years earlier, Dave and John had set out to accomplish something no human had ever officially done: complete a verified, continuous walk around the Earth. Their path traced a massive 14,000-mile land route spanning 4 continents, from North America, through Europe, and deep into Asia. By the fall of 1972, that route forced them into a harsh geographic bottleneck in the mountains of Afghanistan, isolating them from any immediate rescue. A local reporter had recently printed a story claiming the brothers were collecting donations for UNICEF. It was a mistranslation. They were raising awareness, not carrying cash. But bandits read the story, assumed the Americans were hauling a wagon full of money, and tracked them into the mountains. The brothers had prepared for blistering deserts, freezing mountain passes, and physical exhaustion. But out on the fringes of the mapped world, the most lethal obstacle proved to be human predation. 3 years before the ambush, Dave Kunst was 30 years old, working as a county surveyor and a part-time movie projectionist. He felt trapped in a predictable 9-to-5 routine in rural Minnesota, desperate for an escape from modern domestic life. Then, in July of 1969, he watched the Apollo 11 astronauts step out onto the lunar surface. Seeing humanity break its terrestrial limits triggered an immediate reaction in Dave. If men could walk on the moon, he decided he could walk across the Earth. He pitched the idea to his brother John, and within months they departed. Their logistics were highly reckless. They had 0 formal survival training, a budget of $1,000, and a single pack mule named Willie Make-It to haul their canvas tent and basic rations. Dave and John began their walk as a raw, impulsive escape from modern life, relying on little more than Midwestern stubbornness to survive. The initial phase of the journey felt like an extended honeymoon. Walking across the United States and ferrying into Europe, the brothers became minor celebrities. They were hosted by European mayors and dined with explorer Thor Heyerdahl before being invited to Monaco for a royal audience to meet Princess Grace. But the hospitality of the French Riviera quickly vanished. As they pushed out of Europe and deep into the Middle East and Asia, the cheering crowds disappeared, replaced by scorching temperatures and chaotic, unfamiliar environments. Following the ambush, Dave spent 4 months in a hospital recovering from his gunshot wound. Instead of abandoning the expedition, he made a staggering decision. He returned to the exact spot in Afghanistan where John was murdered and took his next step forward. Joined by his other brother, Pete, the new duo marched directly into the grueling conditions of India. They had to physically push through the overwhelming human density of the subcontinent, dodging massive crowds, congested traffic, and torrential monsoon rains. The naive thrill of a global walkabout was gone. For Dave, the expedition had hardened into a rigid, unbreakable obligation to ensure his brother hadn't died for nothing. Flying over the Indian Ocean to maintain the walking rules, Dave touched down in Western Australia. The outback introduced a new extreme: incredibly desolate terrain with unpaved dirt roads baking in daily temperatures of 120 degrees. Here, a chain of losses stripped the expedition to the bone. The Soviet Union officially denied them entry. Pete developed a severe kidney infection and had to be medically evacuated. Shortly after, Dave's replacement pack mule collapsed and died, leaving him entirely alone. Stranded in the desert, Dave was reduced to acting as his own beast of burden. He harnessed himself to the frame and resorted to hauling his own heavy supply wagon by hand across the scorched red dirt. He was on the verge of physical collapse when an Australian schoolteacher named Jenny Samuel intervened. She drove out into the desert, hitched his wagon to the back of her car, and towed his gear so he could survive the final punishing stretch to the coast. Stripped of his brothers, his animals, and his supplies, Dave's survival in Australia proved that ultra-endurance isn't strictly dictated by human muscle. It relies heavily on the psychological threshold for absolute isolation. On October 5, 1974, Dave Kunst walked back into Waseca, Minnesota. A massive crowd flooded the streets to welcome him, roaring as he tipped his worn hat to signal the end of a 4-year loop. The Guinness Book of World Records officially verified the staggering logistics of his journey. He had crossed 4 continents, traversed 13 countries, completely destroyed 21 pairs of leather shoes, and taken over 20 million consecutive steps. This loop of 14,450 miles proved that human resolve can overwrite profound tragedy, setting a new, verified standard for the absolute limits of terrestrial endurance.